recently just came back home after being recalled by, President, Hakainde Hichilema. He's a permanent representative of the African Union. And, well, a lot of talk now about what direction he should be taking, after coming back in the country. A lot of speculation that probably is the one poised now to take up leadership of the Patriotic Front. But, well, he's here to clarify these and many other details on tonight's edition of Diamond Live. But later also we speak to NAREP President Stephen Nyirenda, also just getting to find out what the direction is after coming out of this very important general election. And, well, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba is joining us on tonight's edition of Diamond Live. Welcome.
Thank you, Cheswa. Cheswa, you are splitting our audience. There's a football match today. And I hope Zambia wins, and I wish our boys well that we should win this match. Football is at the heart of our people. Well,
unfortunately, I'm told we're already two goals down, and there's only 3 minutes, to 33 minutes, I'm told, to the final whistle. So you see hope in the Zambian national team still winning this game?
Well, we haven't performed well the last few years, and it is sad that we should be missing both Africa and World Cup appearances. There's no excuse for those many misses. I don't know about football administration, but it's something we need to attend to, because it breaks the hearts of our people when Zambia is not doing well.
Let's get to it, Ambassador. I mean, you just came back on Saturday after being recalled by President Hichilema. I mean, you've served, in two countries, in the Republic of South Africa as well as Ethiopia. 7 years. Has it made you proud that you've done what you were supposed to do?
Well, thank you very much. I am proud of my record. First of all, I'd like to thank, the person that appointed me, former President Edgar Chagwa gave me the opportunity for me to serve in South Africa, and then later transferred and promoted me to Ethiopia. I also would like to thank President Hakainde Hichilema, who, he came into office, he allowed us to work for a period, and then finally made the decision. I leave a good record. I was away for the last 7 years, but I'm proud of the work we did. Back home, there are many things that occurred. Good things, good development initiatives, far-reaching initiatives. I remember when I brought President Jacob Zuma for a national visit here. He hadn't been here since 2009. And when he came in 2017 for his first state visit, he was shocked at the development that Lusaka had taken. Why was he shocked? He lived here. He lived in Kablonga, he lived in Tendere. He looked at the safe houses that the liberation movement then, as the ANC, had in the country. And he was pleasantly surprised at the development strides that Zambia and Lusaka had made. So there are many things that have happened in the last 7 years, good and bad. And we are here.
Did you expect, you could be amongst the list of ambassadors that could be recalled in the shortest possible time of, President Hichilema coming back? Did that mean or signify anything to you?
First of all,
a lot of ambassadors did, some ambassadors did complain that, diplomats are not individuals that must be called anyhow, because it somehow destabilizes the bilateral relations that countries face, and so on, especially now that you're talking about being a permanent representative of the African Union. Do you agree with such sentiments?
No. Diplomacy is a revolving door. Many people are coming in, many people are going out. At senior level, when government changes, leadership changes, it's expected that you'll have new ministers, likely new permanent secretaries, and likely new ambassadors, to hope that you will stay. Well, it's a bit far-fetched. In fact, in the US, they've codified jobs that people lose or are exchanged when there's a new change of government, and among them are ambassadors. So every time there's a new president in America, there'll be a new set of ambassadors, and I've met many. But the diplomatic corps has professional career diplomats. People below ambassadors, below us, are usually professional diplomats, and in rare circumstances should those be recalled just because they were appointed by the predecessor of the incoming president. There should be a modicum agreed to the extent where there's stability, where there's no unnecessary recalls, and for example, recalls are extremely expensive. They're not cheap. To repatriate an ambassador back home is not cheap. To repatriate any diplomat, whether it's Canada, whether it's in Ethiopia, South Africa, China, Japan, or Australia, it's not cheap.
But you're coming back at a very critical time when Ethiopia seems not to be in a very good state, in a state of emergency, and you had to organize a set of diplomats to come back, evacuated back to Zambia. What is the status like of the embassy there, and what do you see the future? What does the future of our economic relations seem to look like with Ethiopia?
Very good. I should state from the outset that I don't speak for foreign affairs or my former embassy, but I can speak from an experiential point of view, matters that I handled before I left. There is a conflict in the north of the country that has been going on for the last 1 year. Ethiopia is a federal state. It has 10 states that make the federal country, and unfortunately, it's made up of ethnic groupings that form the states. So there's some sense of instability as shown by that war in Tigray. And then the rebels began to advance. We proposed a preemptive action. We proposed that we should return our diplomats to safety, and we started with the women and children. So our female diplomats were the first to be returned. His Excellency the President got in and ordered the evacuation of Zambians. We have a core of professionals that work for institutions such as the AU and the ECA, which is the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. And you saw the evacuation. Preceding to the evacuation, I had done an advisory where we had advised the Zambians based in Ethiopia to voluntarily return home, take leave and come back home. But our future relations remain intact. They remain solid. Ethiopia is very important to us. We went into Ethiopia, into Addis Ababa in the 1960s. We have a residence and we have an embassy, chancery. We are heavily invested at the African Union, and Zambia has always been Pan-African in nature, looking at what Dr. Kaunda's foundation was. He's one of the founder members of the African Union, and we have a distinguished record as Zambia, and I don't think we'll abandon that role in any way. We shape Africa, we fashion Africa's policies and agenda, we participate internationally in the affairs of Africa with the rest of the world.
Ambassador, 3 months after the general election, the PF losing to the UPND with quite a huge margin, now talks about redemption. Is there hope, for the Patriotic Front? I mean, speculations around the media that Ambassador Mwamba now is looking at, becoming PF president. Could you clarify these speculations? Is this something that you are interested in as a former diplomat?
Well, the loss of an election is always a good lesson to all students of history. I have been fascinated by political facts in this country, and I watch them very closely. You can contrast to 1991, where UNIP and an elder statesman in Dr. Kaunda was facing all these challenges. The country was struck by this huge debt burden, shortage of goods and services, and the economy was collapsing. And there was a new wind of change across Africa, and it was pioneered by Dr. Chiluba, who, with other colleagues like Ashamba Twambi Kusta, Venon Mwanga, and others, came together, demanded that we return to multi-party democracy, and there we were. Dr. Kaunda lost that election. There was a peaceful handover of power to Dr. Chiluba, and we've done it now. This is the third time. Remember, in 2011, from the opposition, Michael Sata who had been building the Patriotic Front for 10 years, and faces Rupiah Banda, who's an incumbent, and he wins that election. Again, there is a peaceful handover of power. Despite an incumbent losing, despite them being commander of the armed forces, they recognize that the will of the people cannot be subverted, and they hand over power to the opposition leader. And just what happened in August, where President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, lost an election to President Hakainde Hichilema, and as per tradition, as per the democracy we are entrenching, he handed over power peacefully. There was a wonderful transition, and President Hakainde Hichilema is president now.
Did you think
it's a wonderful story in Africa? Something that Zambia is being admired for. We've done it 3 times. We are such a good example to Africa, where you have former or heads of states going for 3rd terms, where you have coup d'etats occurring. Zambia is such a good story.
I mean, let's talk about the future of the PF. Now, a lot of names being thrown, in the media that this is the man that should take up the PF presidency. Are you interested in this?
So I came the other day. I've been associated with the Patriotic Front since 2002. When I started working for Dr. Chiluba, I had advised him that the matters he was facing, remember, the former, the late President Levi Mwanawasa had raised charges against President Chiluba against corruption, alleged that Dr. Chiluba's government was engaged in these high acts of corruption, and there were a barrage of attacks against Dr. Chiluba, and I had encouraged him that this was just not a legal matter, this was a political matter, and he needed to deploy political support. And that's how, I had met President Sata before that. I'd met him as a journalist, but now I was meeting him under the office of Dr. Chiluba, and we invited him, and that's how we started the work with PF in 2002. PF had 1 MP at the time, my dear brother Emmanuel Msonda Mpankata from Luingu. And by 2006, the PF had become the largest opposition party, displacing the UPND, which was the largest party in 2001. Remember, they had amassed 48 MPs, and they were the largest opposition party in 2001. But by 2006, the PF displaced UPND as the largest opposition party, and many years later won the election in.
So you clearly understand the background of the PF. I mean,
I've been part of it.
Could you be the next man for this job?
Like I'm saying, I just arrived. I have to consult. The PF is an institution. It has a history. It has structures. It has current leadership. Anyone vying for any office, for whatever position, you have to respect that.
Leadership that says he's on his way, and President Lungu has clearly said he's on his way.
I'm yet to understand the processes going through in the PF.
Do you think there's a void at the moment of who could possibly be handling the leadership of the PF?
Every time you've lost an election, the vanquished to the victors, the UPND are celebrating, they've taken power, they're consolidating power, both state and political. They are in this huge celebration. The vanquished who've lost are licking their wounds. They're trying to understand how they lost both power, and the effects of losing power are quite difficult. It's a huge challenge. The loss of power, loss of privileges, and then the issues that come, especially if maybe, for example, the state is trying to deploy issues against you. So there is a vacuum, a huge vacuum.
Could you be interested at the general conference to put your name up for the top job in the PF?
My approach has always been to leadership, is servant leadership. I never thrust myself about the position I want. In fact, many times when I've shown interest, like I wanted to stand in Kasama in 2015, and the then president advised that I should stand down because he had given me a job as ambassador in South Africa. I did stand down because for me, I look at it as service. If I can although my personal ambition was to stand in Kasama, but there was this national call that I should go and serve in South Africa. When I tried to stand in Matero in 2016, again, there was that request that I do not pursue it. And
could this be the time? Could this be the most appropriate time that you now wear back your political hat?
I love to work with teams. Leadership is not about individuals. I should not be the messiah to any issue. I should not be saddled with any... what I know about leadership is you move in and you do the work.
Do your instincts tell you that you can make a good PF president?
I've been a leader for many years, and I've served in whatever capacity. I've always said...
Do you imagine serving in the capacity of president? And I think that's the question that I would really love to get, because there's seemingly a lot of speculation about
Cheswa,
who must take up this leadership. Do you imagine wearing these shoes once?
I am humbled,
President Lungu,
greatly humbled that there could be Zambians perceiving me in that light, that I could help in that capacity at that level. Whether it's Secretary General, whether it's presidency of the PF, I have been with the PF since 2002. I have no problem to serve in any capacity.
Including president?
I have no problem, because I don't believe leadership is one person issue. You have to work as a team. You have to rally your supporters. You have to work together. If you present yourself as the Messiah, which you can't be, if you present yourself as the ultimate solution to a current challenge, it can't be done alone.
What do you think?
It can never be done alone. You have to do it with everyone else. You have to carry along. I have no problem with leadership.
I mean, the trend, Ambassador, the trend with political parties has been when they lose power, it's very, very difficult to bounce back. I mean, we saw it. We've seen it with UNIP, we've seen it with the MMD. I mean, now...
It's a mischaracterization.
Now the PF.
Is there
hope for redemption?
Yeah, there's a mischaracterization.
And what could some of the, most significant factors that you felt the PF lost this election when you are over there in Ethiopia? Did you see some of these visible problems happening, and did you try to reach out back here to State House? At State House.
UNIP could not have died other than the decision they made in 1996 to boycott that election. They had 25 MPs and they were growing. There was an attempt to return for Dr. Kaunda to return. The interpretation at the time was that the new constitution barred him, and then he chose to promote a boycott. And they even banned voters' cards. They never recovered from there. So boycott is not a solution. If they had participated, they probably would have garnered more numbers. Because Dr. Chiluba had ruled for 5 years. He had probably made mistakes. He had probably gotten weakened. And the fever of 1991 had been lost. So it would have been a pitted challenge.
But what were some of the biggest mistakes that you think that the PF made?
So coming
to the loss of this election?
Yeah, coming to the PF, it's very clear. Why did the PF lose power? It's very, very clear. First, the state of the economy was quite bad, arising from, number one, the climate change, the huge power shortages we had in 2015, arising from, poor rainfall, and 2016 and 2017, the COVID-19 situation in 2020, the borrowings that had been done, accumulation of debt to do infrastructure from 2011, all came to a head by 2021. So those are some of the factors. Key number one was the state of the economy. The cost of living was high. Number two, who are the voters? They were young people. Look at that register. Out of 7.7 million, look at the register.
And just before the election,
young people.
Just before the election, a lot of members of the PF compared, even claimed that Zambia was doing much better than countries like South Africa or even Ethiopia in terms of commodity prices. Do you think this was a feasible campaign strategy for the PF?
It could be true. It could be true. Sometimes you never see how worse off we are. So first of all, the state of the economy, the cost of living. The voters were young people. What are the needs of voters? They're looking for jobs, looking for education opportunities. They're looking for entrepreneurship. They're looking for bursaries. If the economy is bad, who's paying for their education? So the young people are the huge heart to participate in this election and make a determination for better. What were the other factors? There were allegations of corruption against this government, the government then, and its senior officials. What are the other factors?
Were these genuine allegations of corruption?
No, they are yet to be determined. But a voter makes decision on the basis of perception. It doesn't have to be true. But if I perceive you are corrupt and you have not attended to the allegations, I assume you are corrupt.
Do you think there was a level of arrogance, as many would say, that, look, the PF never wanted to listen to these problems, and they never wanted to listen to the young crop of individuals?
Arrogance, yes.
I mean, scrapping off of meal allowances, you're talking millions of kwacha in the Auditor General's report, and many other factors, expired drugs, and just to mention a few. Do you think that the PF paid a blind eye and blind ear and never listened, rather, to some of these thorny issues that were brought even before the election year?
Cheswa, you don't have to overanalyze. The PF lost an election by a huge margin of 1 million. In fact, my encouragement to whoever is doing the postmortem is first to accept that you've lost an election. Don't give justifications. Don't give reasons. You have lost an election. A verdict has been decided upon you. And there are issues that could have gone wrong. For me, accept the mistakes. It's only when you accept the mistakes that were done can you then, go ahead. We come to the UPND. They won an election. And what are they doing about the win? To attend to the concerns that got the PF punished. The young people want jobs. The young people want support for their entrepreneurial ideas. The young people want bursary support. The young people want many issues that for the general populace. They hated the cadreism. And we should learn lessons. One of the factors that made UNIP lose election was the issue of cadres. There was what was called then by air, where these UNIP vigilantes had taken over markets and bus stops.
And the UPND just coming and they seemingly fixed the problem in the markets. I mean, is this something that inspires hope in you, that over the last 10 years, seemingly the PF had challenges in dealing with cadres in the markets? I mean, the new Dawn administration in 3 months in office, precisely under a month in office, dealt with the issue of cadres in the market.
Political will is important. When the president gives direction and directives, it's very, very important. He did that. The new president did that. But you journalists have to accept that there are reports that cadres are back in markets and in bus stops. You have to hold that challenge to the president and to the Inspector General of Police, that this was a matter you said you've dealt with. Why are we seeing cadres back at markets and bus stops?
Is there hope for change under the new Dawn administration that this issue could be dealt with?
For me, I don't know what it is they are doing, but what they should do is to attend to the concerns. Why are they in office instead of the Patriotic Front? There's a reason they were voted for these grievances. Are they attending to the grievances to which they were voted for? That's, if a lady chooses you over the other, there's something that she saw in you as a man. So will you provide for what you promised in your manifesto when you're getting her? So similarly, coming to the new Dawn, I've heard the president speak. The first time he spoke at Community House, I've heard him speak at the United Nations, I heard him speak in Glasgow. But a major statement is made in National Assembly and at inauguration, where he promises hope for the country, to unite the country. He wants a prosperous Zambia. He repeated the remarks in Parliament. And what is a tool to achieve a prosperous Zambia? It is a national budget. So when I look at the budget, well, fantastic proposals. For example, to employ 30,000 teachers, to employ 11,200 health workers, to do expansion services in the agriculture sector, to expand the CDF fund of 25.6. But when you look at the budget, that's the expenditure side. Supply side, where is the money coming from? There's a huge hole, huge deficit. They wish to borrow up to $4.2 billion. For me, that worries me. I would like to have a policy discussion on that.
Yeah, and we just have.
I thought there was a moratorium on debt.
Yep.
There was an accusation that the PF was borrowing, and in fact, for the PF, they were borrowing not for consumption, by the way. They were borrowing for production because most of the accumulated debt went to infrastructure. We can have the debate about it, but
the president says he will raise the bar high, that the opposition will fail to make it in 2026. Do you see hope?
No, those are
for the opposition. In 2026.
I've seen political rhetoric. I've seen political rhetoric by many.
Ambassador.
Yeah, I've seen political rhetoric by many presidents when they come into office. They're exuberant. They want to speak to their manifesto and their hopes and aspirations, and it's a different ballgame when you go into office. The UPND have been in office for the last 90 days. In fact, 90 days is a big hallmark. You're supposed to give a review what you've done in the last 90 days.
But 90 days also came through for the PF. More money in the famous more money